Okay, state championship game 2002 against Hopkins. Starting lineups are being announced. The ball goes up. The first half begins, and it's a close first half. Can you guys recall any difference of style of play with the size and strength that they had on the floor?
I mean, I think it was pretty obviously noticeable their size. Like stuff we would get away with against other teams, even in regular Lake Conference, wasn't that easy. Wasn't going to happen that easy. But I just remember, I've never watched that game since then. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. I'll say I probably think about it more than I should. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was. I still remember moments of that game that I wish we had back, and wish we came out firing a little more.
Well, Brian Sikora set the crushing screen on Adam Huff.
Yeah.
That was in the first half. Yeah,
I remember a fairly big momentum shift towards the end of the first half when Sikora was going down on a breakaway, and Humphreys was trailing him, and I was trailing just behind that, and he went up for the layup, and Humphreys blocked it, and I'm fairly certain that I saw that ball hit the backboard first. I think that was a goaltending. Did you guys see that? Do you guys remember
I remember that.
I remember it.
Yeah, I think that was a goaltending.
Yeah.
And then I think we went down one into halftime, and we come out, and they're kind of catching a little roll. And I remember you were in the game quite a bit, and you were guarding Humphreys. Mm-hmm. And at a timeout, you came over and you asked a question. Do you remember the question?
I asked if I should contest his shot or try to block it. And I think a couple possessions later, I blocked it.
Yep, you shoved it right down his throat.
Yep.
Then a few more possessions roll by, and you're going down to box out on the defensive end.
Mm-hmm.
And
I got a deliberate undercut or elbow thrown to the ribs and knocked the wind out of me, and I was down.
Yeah, you made lifetime friends with one of those officials, I believe.
He and I did not see eye to eye through college either. And, for whatever reason, Paul Conrad found himself as the baseline official in every game I was in.
And there was a timeout, I think, shortly after you had been injured, and the huddle came around us, and I remember watching Brian, and Matt and I were talking, and we were watching him, and we broke huddle, went out, and I think we both looked at each other and said, there'll be retaliation here. Mm-hmm. And then there was a baseline out of bounds play, and Humphrey came down the lane, and he smacked him pretty good and acted like he got annihilated. I think it was
Brian
acting
was
on
the
Humphrey's
victim.
part. But that's another thing about that group. You guys stood up for each other. You weren't going to take that kind of stuff.
Yeah. As a guy that got hit by Humphreys, and to watch Brian step up, and he took the opportunity to put him down, and Brian being on his way to the U to play football as a tight end. I mean, he wasn't a small guy, and I remember going out to check up on Humphreys early in the game and just being like, this guy's a physical specimen. He's 17, 18 years old and just juiced, and to see Brian put him down like that, it's like, well, that's probably Division I football too.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, we lost 54-40, and you guys we're getting medals and whatever at the end of the game. I'm sure it's disappointment, but you guys had to have some satisfaction of getting that far during that season.
I think in reflecting back on it, certainly, at that moment it was tough. I don't think any of us were happy at right after that game. But looking back on it, I think I'm pretty proud of what we did that year, and I think you guys would probably say the same thing.
I think you look at the circumstances, so we kind of touched on how the open enrollment came together with Hopkins, and here you got a group of guys, especially your guys' core group, that played together, and your community team, you're all friends. It was disappointing at the loss. You look back at what the teams a couple years before had gone to state, and you almost take it for granted at that point. It's the expectation that you're going to be there again. You don't realize how rare it is of an opportunity to make it to a state tournament, and let alone play in a championship game.
Yeah. I remember you talked to us, I don't know, it was some point during that tourney run, either before the game or before we started that run. It was right here, literally right here. One thing I remember at the time, you said some of your best memories are from your playing days here, Jefferson, and obviously played NBA, Europe, and I remember that surprised me at the time a little bit. I'm like, really? All the you've done, and looking back on it, it's like, not that we've had the career you did, but I mean, aside from just basketball itself, like the memories was, and that alone being able to play in a state tournament game was amazing.
That talk, I know exactly the one
Yeah.
you're talking about, had the same impact on
Yep.
me. And it was like, these are my friends, and I look back like going to college and playing. What I find rare is like sitting here with Ev, Vol, Jimmy, you guys, and it's like, it's very rare to come across guys who had great relationships with their high school coaches.
Yeah.
And, great friends that they're still in touch with. And then you go beyond college, and it's like you talk to guys playing overseas and stuff. And, I was fortunate to have that with my college coach as well. But not a lot of guys have great relationships with their college coaches. And it's really cool to look back, and we see each other all the time still, and to be able to talk about this stuff. And they're great memories.
All right, so let me jump in here, Jim. Is that all right? Give me your favorite and worst memory from that season. Favorite memory?
Are we talking the 01,
And you guys may
01,
know
02
Yeah, the
season?
state championship.
Okay.
Your junior.
I mean, I guess the worst memory, my only bad memory from that year is losing at the end, truthfully. I mean, we had some losses during the year, but
Yeah.
Just felt like unfinished business.
yeah, it really did. And I think at the time, even the only silver lining was we felt like we could come back next year and take care of business, which would have been our senior year. But my favorite memory from that year, I really liked going into gyms with that team and the team the next year and getting the other team's best shot every time. Because, by the time the season really wore on, we were, ranked towards the top of the state. And, every late conference game, we would get every team's best shot. And I always thought that was fun.
Yeah.
With your friends and everyone's trying to beat you. And
Especially that year with Brian, as I think season went on, we got more comfortable playing together and stuff. Obviously, Brian always kind of brought that swagger attitude to the court. So when teams are going at us, and then Brian's usually the first one to go back at them, and it was just a lot of fun. They got quiet quick.
Best and worst memory. Whoa, come on.
Best memory for me is just getting a shot. Talking to Volm at practice. The one time I had to practice with him, and he's saying, "Hey, you're out of here. You're going up."
That was your best
Lucky.
memory?
It was my
I don't blame
first exposure to being on a varsity, a championship caliber team. And
So moving up.
Moving up, yep, and being a part of what these guys had kind of set up. And Friday nights coming out here and seeing your friends up. It was just a fun season.
Worst memory.
It's the end of it. It was tough to walk out of that locker room, and everyone's cheering you on, but that's not what you want to hear. It's like, I just got to beat. So that still has a little knot in your stomach.
John.
Best memory, I mean, state tourney run. I think that moment after we beat North in the locker room, I feel like it might have been Glenn Leith, who ever yelled that we're going to the state championship game, and us just going nuts. Water bottles and everything, going crazy. Stands out. And that whole experience from, staying in St. Paul at the hotels, coming back here while everyone's in class and walking through the cafeteria, people start cheering, come down for practice and stuff. That was awesome. Last game still stings. We had a pretty bad loss, I believe, at home that year, Rosemount.
Rosemont.
yeah, we had
That
some
was
bad
rough.
losses, but
Brian was injured that game.
But
Yeah.
the worst was seeing that championship game slip away.
We got to give some credit to Scotty King. What a little workhorse he was. I tell you what.
he was awesome.
He
Definitely.
really put his heart and soul into it.
Yep.
So now we go into your senior season, 02-03, and your junior season. And basically the whole crew but Brian not coming back. We had Andrew Woolley, Cam Diplison played a little bit. John Ebling played a little bit. Not a lot of depth, but an amazing, talented group that was tremendously bright. And one of the brightest teams I think we've ever coached here. And the season starts, and you guys just zoom. You're just rolling right through. 17-0, and I remember.
Finished business, right?
I remember.
There you go.
There was the Timberwolves had that tournament, the shootout or whatever it was, and I remember calling down there and talking to one of the guys about getting us in the tournament, and he said, "Well, we want to have the high-profile #1 team." So I said, "We're going to be pretty good." Well, you guys were #1 in the state there for quite a few weeks during the season. I believe we talked about Bethel and stuff, but talk about how you guys played well together. in a few of the games.
I think, we played that summer together, and you just play a lot of basketball and figure stuff out. I do remember Ev's always had his little practice cards, and at some point, he's got his date on there. It's like whatever, December 1st. He's like on the February 15th practice plan or whatever, because we were so far ahead, and we're sitting in the gym over there, and it's just like we all bought in and knew we had to get it done, and everybody's fully engaged in it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just having familiarity with each other, and then even being ranked number one, and Friday night had a big win. We still had to come in Saturday morning and do our zigzag drills, take charges, and you guys made sure we kept on track.
Yeah, I remember having just knowing almost a business-like attitude about the fact that we had a goal to get back to the state championship game and win it. And we played a ton of basketball together from when we were kids growing up, and then of course that those few years with Beaudry. And yeah, we really understood how we played together, and everybody had their roles and their niche on the team. And we just had a lot of confidence that year too. Same thing where we would go in and we would know every time we'd go into the gym, we were going to win.
Well, a big factor of that too was Hopkins had everybody back, with the exception of Hoffarber, the older Hoffarber. It was kind of like we had this unfinished business. The same guys were still out there, and we knew what it was going to take to go and compete with those guys.
I have one memorable game, and it was probably one of the most crazy I've ever been a part of as a coach, and that was at Eden Prairie. And I remember walking up the stairs with you guys and saying, "Hey, enjoy this moment. Welcome to this great event here." You guys walked out, and it was mayhem.
That was crazy.
Packed to the rafters. And, of course, you were playing against a cousin. We seem to have the Eden Prairie Jefferson cousin thing going there for a while. And tell us about those events, both of those events.
That game was special. That's probably one of my best memories from that year. I mean, I think the fire marshal shut the doors like an hour before the game, something like that. I mean, that place was as packed as it could be. I think our fans, our student section, broke the bleachers. And we were 1 and 2 in the state at that point. I can't remember who was 1 or 2, but and of course the relationships we had with the players on that team, and my cousin, of course, Ian Thomas, and then we played with Jordan Nunes and Nichols and a lot of those guys during the summer as well. We were on the same team, so we knew them well. They knew us well. You weren't going to, trick them with anything that they wouldn't or we wouldn't know. It just came down to execution and physicality, and it was a pretty low-scoring game, I recall. I remember one thing about me personally that game. My first 3 I took was an air ball, and their fans were on me hard every time I touched it, chanting really loud, and they were really into it. And a few possessions later, I think I made one and turned to the student section as they just quieted down. And it was like the best feeling.
Never thought I'd see that out of you. I do recall that a moment.
I remember before that game started, in our home games, we always made sure the team ran out before us, and then we'd come out, big show. So, but at EP, that game specifically, I think we were like downstairs or something, and they were upstairs, and they were yelling at us to go out.
Yeah.
And it might have been Ian yelling. I don't know. And we're just like, no, we're not going. You guys can go first. And they did. So, and then we went after them.
I think that team had a very similar profile as our team.
Yeah.
In terms of how they played, their cohesiveness, and things like that. Personal story for me on that game is I left my shoes in the locker here. And so the fire marshal had shut the door, and I'm on the phone. This is like the first time I had a cell phone. I'm like, Mom, I need my shoes now. And she had, to finagle get in. I had Steve Wheeler's shoes on for warm-ups or something like that. So I got a little ahead of myself packing for the game. But our student section, talking about heckling, they called Jordan Nunes, who turned out to be a great friend of mine. We played college together and stuff. They called him Urkel. And every time he touched the ball, they call him Urkel. So Jordan had transferred to UMD, and we're out at a social gathering on a Saturday night, and a lot of lake conference types of kids there. He's introducing himself, and everyone's like, "You're Urkel." He goes, "No, my name's Jordan." But he was labeled that like for the rest of his career.
Another unique situation with the Eden Prairie side was they got a new coach that year. His name was Keith Erickson. He had been there before. And as a staff, we knew that was going to present some challenges because they were going to do things differently, and they did. They kind of slowed the game down more and played possession to possession. And Do you recall a difference in the change from the 01-02 season to that 02-03 season? Because you guys knew those guys and played with them for so long.
Yeah. Well, I actually didn't remember too much of a scheme difference, but they had some younger guys, some juniors and sophomores that year that had length and skill. So they kind of brought in quite a few reinforcements.
Tommy Drake and Matt Bloomquist.
Yeah. That, you know, we didn't have a lot of new guys coming in that didn't play the previous year. So I think the biggest difference was they just got better.
I think from a scheme standpoint too, and getting back to the prior year with North, it's like we were pretty adaptable. You know, you guys would always put a scheme together, and it's just a matter of us executing our game as opposed to trying to prevent them from doing what they do. So I didn't think it really made a difference, and I wasn't really even aware of it because it was just focusing on what we had to do.
All right, I'm going. All right, let's switch this up. Talk about what you guys were aware of as far as Jefferson basketball history. Jack Evans, you guys played for Jeff, but what did you know about Jack, his success, him building the program, starting the program, and teams and players that you guys were aware of that came before you? You don't have to say me, say whatever you want, but just what were you aware of as far as the program and the success, you know, before you?
I would say I was definitely aware of the success. I mean, at the time, still is one of the all-time Jack winningest coaches in the state. So, and then of course the state championship teams. So it was definitely on my radar, aware of it, and I think we're all aware of it to a certain extent. And then, you know, the teams, like when we were freshmen, and then guys that came before us, you know, that went to state, Lake Conference championship, you know, we wanted to keep the train going. So, yeah, that was definitely apparent.
What do you got?
You know, I wasn't really aware of a whole lot on Jack until after the fact. I didn't really come to high school games until, you know, 7th, 8th grade, and so like Nate Omi and that crew was really the first exposure to the varsity deal. I was looking up in the gym and starting to look back at the success that took place. It's super impressive. And then after, you know, going through the program here and looking back and talking to other people, and you understand the respect that everyone has for the program and the Evans family. I mean, I definitely understand it and appreciate it. Appreciate being a part of it.
Yeah, I didn't learn about that until I was in the program, and I remember reading the paper one day, and that's when I saw that he was one of the winningest coaches in Minnesota high school history, and which is just incredible. And then to carry it on through Jeff and everything is just a great tradition, and seeing the
You can just look
success, seeing the success on the walls, and you know, we were obviously very familiar with you and your success here, and I mean, that was a high bar. But the teams that were, you know, the years before us within close proximity were the ones that we really followed, and they were good teams, and you know, that's really what we strove for, at least for me, because, you know, when I was a kid, I didn't go to a lot of high school games. But as we got older and closer to being on the team ourselves, and then seeing those guys and what they were able to accomplish, it definitely made us want to.
Inspires.
Yeah, for sure.
Inspires younger kids. I got one more question here for. Last one. Yeah, last one. John, when you were a senior, Cole Aldrich was a freshman.
Yep.
Talk about your thoughts on Cole when he was coming up through the program, and what you did and what you thought of him, and how you worked with him when he was a young kid growing up here.
You know, he was a special talent. Obviously, he stepped in right away. My senior year, we had a formidable front line. We didn't have a lot of backcourt depth, and you know, so I think that was challenging for Cole and I, just because there was so much emphasis on him from a defensive scheming standpoint for these teams, because they could kind of sag in on him. I do remember at one point, I think we played Burnsville, and they had Ryan Amoroso, who was a Division I, guy, and I think Cole had a triple-double. And I remember Amoroso kind of at the free throw line, and at the time he had committed to Marquette or something, and it was in Cole's ear right away, like, hey, go Eagles, like you got to look at Marquette, because you knew he was going to be good. But obviously Cole is a goofy kid, and he had some maturing to do, but he did that over the years, and definitely didn't ever shy away or back down from contact. And as you